As I've mentioned her a few times today, but my girlfriend's a breathwork practitioner. She runs a business called barleybreathwork.com, #ad. And one of the things she's talked to me a lot about is mouth breathing. And I know there's a relationship between nitric oxide and how we choose to breathe, whether it's through our nose or through our mouths. Can you explain to me that link?
When we talk about the enzyme that's found in the lining of the blood vessels, when we started this segment, that same enzyme is found in our epithelial cells, in our upper airways, in our sinuses. So just like exercise can activate nitric oxide production in the lining of the blood vessels, deep breathing, nasal breathing activates that enzyme in the epithelial cells of our sinuses. And so when we do nasal breathing, it's activating the enzyme to make nitric oxide. And now we're delivering that nitric oxide gas into the bronchioles, the lower airway. It's dilating those bronchioles. Moreover, it's dilating the pulmonary arteries. So now we're improving oxygen uptake, oxygen delivery, and that's why nasal breathing and deep breathing has been shown to lower blood pressure.
This is a pretty crazy graph I took from Google as well, which shows just how interested people are now getting in the subject of mouth breathing.
Oh yeah, again, going over the past 20 years. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people. I mean, obviously your girlfriend, there's a Patrick McKeown in the UK.
Came into Dragon's Den, and I made him an offer in Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the benefits of that are pretty well, and mechanistically we understand the benefits of it. So the mouth breathers are not only bypassing this natural nitric oxide production pathway, but when you mouth breathe, it completely changes the microbiome. And so you're not only bypassing the nitric oxide producing in the upper airway, but you're inhibiting nitric oxide production in the mouth from the microbiome because you're fully oxygenating the mouth. It's changing the pH of the saliva and completely changes the microbiome and completely shuts down nitric oxide production.
Interesting. So
you have to, I'm a big fan of mouth taping, but for me, I know, and I watch my kids, but sometimes there's anatomical issues where there's obstructive airways and airway obstruction that has to be corrected by dental appliances or sometimes surgery. But the worst thing you can do is tape your mouth and your airway be constricted and, you suffocate. So before you do mouth taping, you need to get some imaging done from your dentist to make sure that your airway is open to where if you're forced to breathe through your nose, you can actually have oxygen exchange.
And is there anything else that I could and should be doing to increase and improve my nitric oxide levels that we haven't talked about yet?
Humming, there's certain frequencies. We've done this in looking at nitric oxide coming out of the exhaled breath when you're humming. So certain frequencies can activate this enzyme, and it's dependent upon the volume of the nasal sinuses. So there's not one frequency that would work in every single person because the volume of your airways and oral cavity and sinuses was probably much different than mine.
Give me an example. Show me.
Well, if you just, like ohms, like you do in meditation or just simple humming, you could actually, so if I had my ozone or gas phase analyzer here, I could hum, and I could detect nitric oxide coming out of my exhaled breath.
Because of the frequency of the...
Because of the frequency and activating the nitric oxide synthase enzyme. But if you take older patients, and we've demonstrated this, it's published years ago, and other groups have demonstrated this, older patients that their enzyme isn't making nitric oxide, whether they do nasal breathing or whether they do humming, there's no nitric oxide coming out. So again, this is an activator and a stimulator, but it's dependent upon the function of the enzyme that makes nitric oxide. If your enzyme is broken, humming, nasal breathing, exercise isn't going to produce any nitric oxide.
Is there anything else that I should be aware of if I'm trying to improve my nitric oxide levels?
I think it's doing the things that disrupt it. Get rid of fluoride, get rid of mouthwash, stop using antacids, stop eating sugar, anything that leads to an elevation in blood sugar, a balanced diet in moderation, moderate physical exercise, 20 to 30 minutes of sunlight a day.
Sunlight.
There's certain, at both ends of the visible spectrum, both are the UV spectrum and the full spectrum infrared. So those frequencies and vibrations, again, stimulate nitric oxide release. So the UV has enough energy to where it'll knock nitric oxide bound to a cysteine thiol and protein, and then the UV spectrum will release nitric oxide bound to metals.
So you mean go out in the sunshine, but also those red light beds and stuff?
Yeah, the red light. I have a red light bed. I have an infrared sauna that uses red lights in it, and I use it every day.